motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a couple questions. Chief, have we ever had a citizen complain that body cam footage was not available to them?
No, sir.
And the body cams were started when? What year? Were you hear that?
Yeah, we initially, when I came on board, we had a body cam, but it was something that was not, it was what we could afford at the time. And as a result of that, we've basically done our due diligence, and we've invested ourselves in a more expensive top-of-the-line body cam. About 2018, 2019 timeframe, we started getting them in. They were spurts. They didn't come in all at once. So we had to maintain just a memorandum of agreement of how we were going to do it until we got them all online. Once we got them online, we put them through a 30-day process to where our IT guy, and Sergeant Hilly, who runs our IT as well, looked at all the capabilities and how we could set the policy based on what we needed and what the camera could do for us. At that point, we started working on that policy.
Okay, and I see that the policy that we currently have in effect is a good 9 pages long. It's very comprehensive.
It is.
This was revised on April 17th.
Right.
What part of that was revised on April 17th?
I think the most important thing that was revised is we were looking at common policies throughout the state and the country, and we found there was no policy addressing the citizen that had been inadvertently cameraed, which means that if we were on a scene and there were people that might have been a witness or they were involved in something but they weren't criminally charged, there was no recourse for them. Our new policy reflects that any citizen that feels they were recorded in any way and it doesn't fall under our policy for what's acceptable as evidence, then they had a right to have that removed, which means they could come in, they could review that policy or that body cam footage, and they could say, okay, I don't want that, there's no reason to have it, and we'd have to agree with it. That was our biggest revision.
Thank you.
Chief, I actually have a copy of our previous body cam ordinance, and the one that you revised, and I believe you just revised it actually last year. It was after I was questioning you about it. It is much more detailed. I mean, the previous one, I believe, is 1 page.
Yeah, that was the memorandum when we were initially going from that one body cam to the new body cam.
Okay. In my opinion, I mean, it's all great to have a policy, but when you don't follow policy, then what happens? What type of punitive action happens? Because I'll say this, and I'm not telling any privileged information because it's on a YouTube video that's been viewed over 20,000 times.
Okay.
In the situation where everybody's here, Officer Fetzko at the end of that video asked Officer Dalton if he had his body cam on. Officer Dalton responded, yes, did you? And Officer Fetzko said no, because you had yours on.
Right.
Well, if he didn't have his on because he knew Officer Dalton had his on, why did he ask him the question?
Because he was in a fight. Officer Dalton was in a fight prior to this whole event, and he was making sure his body cam was online.
No, I understand. What I'm saying, Officer Fetzko asked Officer Dalton, did you have your body cam on?
Right.
According to even the previous body cam policy, Officer Fetzko was in violation of that policy. He should have had his body cam on when they exited the vehicle when a knock and talk.
No, that's not true.
I'm going to stop this now. This is
I just
too
give a
much
piece of
depth
legal
with
advice, Mr. Mayor.
the lawsuit.
The facts of the lawsuit, and of course, it's up to counsel what you talk about, what you don't. I'm not telling you what to do here. That's not my job. But let me explain to you. We're in litigation about these facts. And the whole purpose of litigation is to provide a forum and a process managed by the judge and the lawyers to resolve the claim fairly for the city and for the citizen. So for us to have a casual conversation about, or a conversation here about the facts of the case, crosses and corrupts the process that the federal judge is running. So my advice to the council, and again, take it or leave it, is not to discuss anything about the facts of the case. The body cam policy is a separate issue, and I hope we could discuss the body cam policy and the proposed ordinance without talking about the facts of that unfortunate incident.
Understood, counsel, and thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
I just say that it's obvious to me that in a situation that one officer did not have his body cam, and that certainly appears to be a fact. So I believe that when they exit the vehicle, they should be required to have them on. And chief, that's for not only the safety of the public, that's for the safety of the officers, and that is also for the safety of this municipality. We're in a big lawsuit right now. forbid that we don't get canceled, that our insurance doesn't cancel us out. Because then what do we do?
Let me address your question about policy. Number one, you can't put a policy in place for every possible thing that could happen. You look at the things you run in general, and you apply a guidance to that. Policies are guidance. They're living and breathing. Every day they can be adapted, changed, or amended as we see fit. You can't, if you talk about officer safety, I've been stabbed twice in domestic violence calls by the woman. So officer safety I'm very familiar with. On the other side of this is, you want me to get inside a police officer's head at the moment he's trying to make a decision on whether to intercede into something or aggress into something or take a step back and determine if it needs to be copied. I can't get in this officer's head. Federal law doesn't mandate for me to get in this officer's head. I provide them with guidelines that we try to walk through this, and if we find it doesn't work, we'll do something different. But up to this point, it was not an issue because we had body cam coverage at the discretion of a police officer. Is when he determined he thought he was going to need it. Is that discretion always right? I can't tell you that.
And Chief, wouldn't the problem be solved by simply every time they walk out of the park or they have interaction with the public to have it on?
No,
What does it do?
you take the discretion away, but if I'm a police officer and I stop you for speeding and I see you commit that crime and you admit that crime to me and I decide not to say I'm going to give you a ticket, that's called malprison of justice. We're not enforcing the law. Yet the officers have the discretion based on this person. If their attitude is one, I don't think I was doing it, or I wasn't aware of it, we have that ability to go, okay, I understand. This time we're not going to issue a ticket. You take away that ability because each and every time he pushes that body cam, if he lets a criminal go or he cuts a piece of a slack to a person, technically he's in violation of the law. Officers cannot not enforce the law. That's the law.
Understood, and I think we talked about this last year, and I was questioning you about body cams, and my question was, if you imagine you pull over a car, and that person's a wanted fugitive, and that officer gets up there and bang, he's shot. I mean, shouldn't that, and I believe you told me that any time that we pull somebody over, that their body cams are supposed to be activated.
Number one, we run the tag. If that tag gives us a reason, what you're asking me is put these officers in Iraq every day, and they're surrounded by potential people that are going to shoot them and kill them. If I do that, I will degrade the ability for these police officers to basically get together with citizens and explain or educate or listen to their issues of why they were doing something. You take that ability away. Once that's on body cam, according to our policy that you're submitting, it becomes evidentiary. We can't get rid of it. We can't do something with it. Yes, there's good and there's bad with this. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying based on the people we deal with every day, half the people that we stop, we don't give tickets to. Under this policy, there's an evidence procedure that says he committed a crime in my presence. The code says I must arrest him or charge him. You take that discretion away.
Understood. I'd just like to say one more thing. There have been dozens of studies, by Harvard, by Yale, by Stanford, and it is a proven fact that when people know they are being videoed, their behavior changes.
So what makes them think that my body cam being on my body doesn't mean I'm recording? What do I have to do to say, I got a body cam, I'm recording you? Now, we do that in certain situations where the Fifth Amendment or they're incriminating themselves. We can give them a cleansing statement which says, stop, I'm going to record this. You're making an incriminating statement. Under your policy, these people wouldn't have a chance to think about it because now it's part of evidence. We don't have that cleansing statement which allowed them to go, you made a mistake.
Well, for me, and I understand and agree with you, there may be some good and bad. In my opinion, the good greatly outweighs the bad because if an officer has his body cam on and he behaves differently, he doesn't maybe get out of line or be aggressive or do something because he knows whatever he's doing is being recorded and it's being videoed. And if the public is aware, that's the same thing. I just put a dash cam up in my car. It's kind of funny. Today's the first day. I'm driving different now.
Well, of course you
I
will.
mean, you know,
you're telling me-
everything's recorded.
You're telling me a police officer's integrity is only measured by the body cam on the body.
Absolutely not.
We put them people out there, and we trust these people to drive around Westover at 2 o'clock in the morning so people can be safe in their houses. There's a certain level of trust I give my officers based on training and conditioning. Our disciplinary policy, which supplements our policy, which it's not one thing. I don't have a policy which each policy has a disciplinary action to it. We have a disciplinary action that takes into account any violation of the policy and what level they're at. In and itself, you're looking at police officers and saying they're potentially going to do more wrong than they'll do good, that's why I want the body cam. When in fact, body cam is productive. It does produce evidence. It does produce how we can go back and look at an officer's interaction with citizens. You're completely right. But if I take that idea that the officers recognize when there's a threat and they punch that body cam, or they get involved in a situation, all of a sudden it goes south real fast, and boom, I punch the body cam. I cannot regulate their belief or their feeling or their behavior. I don't know what they're feeling or seeing that I don't see. A body cam, in any body cam, you don't feel the tension of a body when an officer touches you. You don't feel the breathing. You don't feel the tension that two officers or two people have when they're in bed.
I get it, Chief. You're saying it should be subjective. I'm saying it
I'm
should be.
very subjective, and when you're dealing with the public, you can't arrest everybody. And under this policy, you're making my officers go, it's a crime if I don't, because I'll be held accountable and I'll be fired. That's what they're thinking.
Well, like I said, at the end of the day, and I've weighed both sides, the options, in my opinion, there's a lot more good on making it mandatory and having everything videoed for the protection of everyone than it is for what you're saying, pull somebody over for going 10 miles an hour, and instead of letting them off, you gotta give them a ticket. They could give them a warning. I mean, that's not gonna get them in trouble.
Let's put it this way, Officer, or Councilman Mullins, you understand it, I feel it. I feel it every day. Talking to these officers, trying to do what's right, and when they go a little bit off, nudging them back in that line with reason. I don't wanna force them to say, you have to do this. I wanna go, can you see why this is a good idea to do this? Make them see for themselves that they're recognizing a problem that they might not know they had. But to regulate, if you do it to one policy, you're gonna regulate all the policies.
Well, this in particular, in my opinion, is a very important policy. I don't think that you've got to make ordinance to all of our policies, but this body cam policy, in my opinion, does need an ordinance. I believe if mechanisms don't exist, to when situations like this occur, for the Civil Service Commission and for City Hall to not be notified, there's not a mechanism that doesn't exist for that, which appears that there isn't.
There is.
And well, if there is, then
Every time when I'm standing up here, at every council report, you have the right to say, what about this?
Exactly, but until June of last year, we didn't know anything about this situation.
We didn't know anything about it. What do you think?
Well, it happened 6 months previous.
All right, let's move on. We've got a motion and a second on
Okay.
discussion. Let's have a vote, please.
Vivian Darcic,
No.
Steve Lawrence,